People who were adults during Y2K, what was the most radical action someone you know did to prepare for the apocalypse? I was a teenager. My parents were preppers. We had a basement stocked with canned food, had rewired the house to run off a generator, etc. Most extreme thing we did was train in firearm safety in case we had to defend our supplies. I was a kid, but I remember my neighbors were preppers and came over during the day on night begging my parents to fill the bathtubs and sinks because there'd be no water the next day. Now, did you know that so many people actually started to do this at the same time, that the water supply in several major cities actually cut off? Which only made more people think the apocalypse was happening, since the water turned off. I was college-aged back then. A friend of mine dropped out of school his parents were paying for because, what's the point? Y2K is happening. The day came and went. He was out of school. Parents were pissed and no longer wanted to pay his way. Haven't been back to that area in years, but last time I went, he was the manager of a roller skating rink. I remember my parents getting very little in terms of food supply, not thinking anything would happen but just in case. I remember telling my mom how people on TV said to fill up all your bathtubs with water before midnight for extra water supply. She said I'd rather starve than drink water from a tub our butts and dogs' butts have been on for 10 years, good point mama lol. I grew up in England and all I remember from my late teens on this issue is that most people seemed to laugh about it and not take it seriously at all, which is quite reflective of my general recollection of growing up in England. I went to a sleepover at a friend's house and we just sat outside and waited for it while eating toast. When nothing happened we went to bed. The most interesting nugget I do remember about some crackpot millennium panic was the former Argentina and Real Mallorca goalkeeper Carlos Rowe, who abruptly quit his career because he was convinced the world was going to end. As far as I remember, he just dropped off the map and went to live in the mountains somewhere in South America. When it didn't end in Armageddon, he scuttled back out to his team, but his career didn't quite hit the same heights. His story is interesting and you can look it up. Oh shit, have I got a winner? In like '98, my best friend's dad moved the family to a 60-acre farm like 90 minutes away from our hometown. They lived in a trailer on this farm while he and her older brother basically built this underground house into a hill. Wound up being a nice house, but teeny tiny, like 800 square feet for all 6 of them to cram into. He also had a separate bunker with like 6 months of canned food, and they had outhouses and generators and were just ready for all the nuclear weapons to shoot off for Y2K. Best part, he took out thousands of dollars in gold coins, split it up and put it in sacks, and then buried the sacks all around the farm. So Y2K comes and goes, the world survives. When he goes to dig up his gold, the bags have started disintegrating and the gold had fallen out. So he had to claw through the dirt to get his gold and wound up missing a couple $1,000s worth of coins somewhere out there, I think. My aunt stocked up on Hot Pockets. Apparently that's all you need. Upstairs neighbor of my friend's went to Israel because she thought Jesus was coming back. Her visa expired and they kicked her out of country before the new year. So she stockpiled water in about half a dozen barrels on the side of the apartment building. Who knows what else she had in her apartment. I thought about flipping the main breaker switch to cut the power to her unit right at midnight, but I couldn't bring myself to be that mean to a crazy person. We lived in the mountains, and in the last couple of years before Y2K several pepper families moved into our neighborhood. We're talking ammunition bunkers, panic rooms and cellars full of food. After nothing happened, lots of them ended up giving away barrels of food because it turns out they didn't want to eat rice and beans for every meal if there wasn't actually going to be an apocalypse. We ate for free for years. My stepdad turned our walk-in closet in mine and my sister's room into some Dexter-looking plastic-lined dungeon with a shit ton of canned food and water and various other supplies. Even at 13 I knew we would be majorly fucked if an apocalypse occurred. Our third story back of the 2-bedroom unit closet with random rations wasn't going to save us. Unless he planned to murder us. Would explain the plastic. I wasn't an adult, but I remember as a young kid going to our cultish church with all the fellow members in preparation for what they thought was a possible rapture event about to happen. Everyone was bawling, saying goodbye and shit, we'll see you at the pearly gates son, etc. I believe the next day was a Sunday, the normal church service day. I wasn't old enough to notice this, but I imagine it was quite the awkward moment when everyone showed up, alive and unraptured. I was a year old so I don't remember, but apparently my church had a fellowship until midnight just so people could feel comforted or something. Sounds so weird and irrational now, but I guess some people really thought the world was ending and spent that night praying. I was told I slept through the whole event. There was definitely some religious fervor mixed in with the Y2K bug hype. SDA had some preppers. JWs and Mormons did, too. Then, you had Pentecostal nuts, but everyone in Christendom expected them to lose their minds. Generally speaking, a good way to predict everything is going to be fine. Look to the charismatic faiths that speak in tongues and faith heal. The more panicked they are, the more likely it's going to be fine. The less panicked they are about legitimate doom, like climate change, the worse it's gonna be. I did a lot of spinning and weaving at the time, just for fun. In about August of '99, Polly showed up at our weekly gathering. She bought $1,000+ of spinning and carding equipment from a dealer in the group. Bought half a dozen sheep from Susan. Comes time to deliver the sheep, Susan drives them out there, finds out that Polly just moved to this country house with her kids and husband a month ago, and doesn't have any fences up, so doesn't actually have a place to put the sheep. They work it out with a neighbor to put them in an unused paddock until fences can go up. Polly keeps coming to our weekly spin-in, but she won't listen to any teaching or advice. She's read all about spinning, so she knows how. Keep in mind, spinning is like riding a bike. You can read all you want, but it's not going to teach your muscles the needed coordination. After a couple months, she finally condescends to take a bit of our instruction, and starts getting the hang of things, and starts opening up. Turns out Polly has bought this fenceless hobby farm for Y2K, and she fully expects to be making all their own clothes. The teenage kids are going to card all the wool, and she's going to spin and weave everything. We politely roll our eyes, privately calculating how many years our closets full of clothes will last us before we have to wear hand-spun. Come December, we stop holding meetings, because January rolls around, Y2K having come and gone, and none of us ever lay eyes on her again. I've always wondered what she did and where she went. I had a neighbor who, at the stroke of midnight, kicked open his front door and started shooting a machine gun wildly into the air. He then looked around, realized that the power grid was fine and that there wasn't a bloodthirsty horde out to kill him, and then walked back inside. Effing trailer parks, man. My aunt and uncle bought an entire ton of shredded wheat. Their church assigned each family something to get so that they could all share and support each other during the fallout, and that's what they had. They ate shredded wheat for breakfast for many, many years after that. Edit, apparently I remembered wrong. I told my parents about this morning and they said my aunt and uncle actually bought wheat berries that they had to grind themselves. They still have the grinder too. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of the video. If you were at all entertained, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing for future content. Stay safe everyone, until next time.